hello there.
I lost the screen. Okay.
Welcome to another edition of the Needle Bar. I'm Justin Armenta. That is Matthew Enderley. And we have a third here who's having some technical difficulties, so he should be popping up here shortly. Jeff will be in the house. But we are here tonight to talk about a Digitizing 911. Woo! Yay! I always love these.
For those of you that aren't familiar with what Digitizing 911 is, it is a free segment on our show where you basically send us a design that you have, and we will have the pros go through it and show you exactly how to, fix it. And usually they can provide the file back and hopefully save you a lot of time, because we can go from a design that takes 147 trims down to maybe 27 or something like that. And that alone will save you a lot of time and produce a cleaner sew out. So,
exactly. You're always looking for efficiency. You're always looking for quality. Something that's going to make sure that it's going to work with your particular project, the garment, and so on and so forth.
So we have Jeff in the background, so let's bring him in and see if he works.
He works for the time being. He might freeze here and there. I think he's got some.
I see slow eye movement.
Very slow eye movement. I was going to see how long I could do it, but I'm also trying to open the file on my computer at the same time, so I have to look around, and it just is not cooperating. All right.
You play with that. I'll pull up some comments here. We got some people in the peanut gallery here. We have Cindy from Texas. Hello, Cindy. We have, is it Voogd Seaworks? That's my pronunciation. From Nebraska. We have Joey here, and I believe this is Joey's file, if I have the right Joey here. Sorry, I can't remember the last name of the individual that sent the file in. We have Kingsbury Crafts. Hello. Hello, Doug from Los Angeles, California. Yes, it is Joy. Perfect. So, there you go. Yeah, so if you ever have any problems with the design, whether you digitize it or you got it from a digitizer, and even if it's something where you've ran the design once on one substrate, but it doesn't work on another, send it into us. As much information possible really helps us out to identify where the problems are and how we can help you. This particular individual, Joey, he sent me pictures, he sent me the file, described what was happening. So it's pretty straightforward after looking at the picture and the file itself, what we can improve here. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to highlight the changes done in two different softwares today, as long as Jeff's internet holds up.
Well, no promises at this point, but we're going to try it.
Right. So I'm gonna highlight it in the Wilcom system that I use and see things that I did differently to help this file out, and then we'll switch over to Jeff, and he's gonna highlight it in the Pulse system. So let's add this. This is the photograph of the said design. Main things that you can kind of see from here. Not pictures always help to kind of identify the things that you can kind of visually see. It's not always going to tell a story of problems that they have on the machine itself. But right off the bat, I do see some issues with the lettering not being very clean. Could be some areas of registration where you're not really having the gaps between the elements that are even on both sides of the design. Do see some areas, some smaller elements that are done in fill stitches that could be possibly adjusted. So yeah, this is the design that was the target that we're
Candidate?
looking for today. What's that? I think Jeff's froze.
They all froze.
Oh, better
We can
upgrade
still
the
hear you.
dial connection.
Let's make it a little bit bigger.
There you go. So yeah, so you can see the issues with the lettering, the elements in the center there that are fills are pretty small elements to do as a fill stitch, and the areas between the propellers and the quarter circle parts, I can see that they should be more than likely equidistant on all sides, and there's some registration issues there. So those are the main things that I can see from the picture.
Is the text to Tommy?
It's not.
No.
So one of the things when I had the conversation with Joey, because the first thing that I saw, and I'll go ahead and pull up my actual digitizing software here.
So real quick, Cindy actually said, would some issues be too high on the cap? Would that pull out a registration? Yes.
I do see that the design looks a little bit high up on the cap. Typically, what you would see on something that's really high up on the crown is you would see a lot of distortion in the circle itself, which is not necessarily the case. There might be a little bit of distortion, but it could lead to some of the registration issues. But after looking at the file, I kind of see where some of the issues are as well. This is just the original, yes. So right off the bat, when I opened the DST file up, I did see that it is at 3 inches tall. So I did question Joey as far as if he was running it before I saw the photograph, if he was trying to run it at 3 inches tall, which is quite large for a hat. And he did say that he did reduce it on the machine. So even reducing it to 2.5 inches tall, which is typically max that I like working with on a hat. Circular designs actually go to like 2.25 if at all possible, just because the higher you get on the crown, the more distortion you're going to get in symmetrical shapes like a circle. So going down 75% on the machine is not really recommended. It's not going to reduce, I guess, the artifacts and the number of stitches and whatnot in the file on the machine the same way it's going to be in your software. So that's the first thing right off the bat that I saw, that if you are going to take a design and reduce it, best bet is going to be reducing it in the software, not in your machine. Let's go through a quick slow redraw. So right off the bat, I do see that there is no global underlay as far as establishing the center out pattern that you want to do with fills. The fill is actually going in 2 different directions. It's not one fluid motion going from bottom to top direction. So that in itself can be an issue on a hat. Okay, so yeah, right off the bat, just my first couple of inclinations is the size of it, the way it's digitized as far as center out. You really want to establish that global underlay, so you can establish the structure of the hat and really stabilize it to the stabilizer or the backing. And another thing that I did notice right off the bat, just seeing that the gaps between the text and the outline, they're not really uniform here. So when I measured the distance between the 2 outlines, I'm seeing that's just over 9 millimeters, and this one is just about 7.5 millimeters. So that's going to be another issue when it comes to everything lining up everything looking symmetrical, everything looking even, especially when you have these really, really symmetrical designs. I think it's really important to try to make sure that everything is set in the software before it even gets to the machine. One thing I'm making assumptions with this design because it is so symmetrical that it's supposed to have those even spaces and whatnot. I haven't seen the original art, but given the nature of the design, I would think it would be. So those are a couple things that I saw right off the bat just by kind of looking at the design on screen. Just tell me if there's any question, guys.
Joey said he would like to send us the original art. If you would like to, and we can bring it up right away, just send it to this email, info@theembroiderynerd.com. I made sure I spelt it right because we all spell embroidery wrong. Everyone does it, especially this guy.
Well, Justin might have the email.
But
The art. Or Joey, you can just message me on Messenger, Facebook Messenger. I have that open now if you want to do that. But yeah, those are the major things. Oh, another thing that I did see. Let me go to my software here. Taking a look at the fill elements on these propellers, given that we are going to
I got it here.
You got it? Man, what is up with our computers today? There we go. Given that we're going to go down, take this down to what I recommend, 2 1/4 tall.
So one of the things I saw interesting in here, Justin, is on that left side, on the circle, one satin that has another satin underneath it for some.
Yeah, I'm assuming, just looking at the hat sample, I'm assuming that's something that shouldn't be there. Like maybe he had started an element there and ended up finishing it off, and he forgot to delete an element. That's what I'm assuming. So, but yeah, the main thing that I saw with these propellers is if I take the design down to 2 1/4 tall and I do measure the propellers, they're only just over 6 millimeters wide at the widest point. So having the fill stitch is not really necessary because what's happening is this whole element here is a fill on top of a fill. So I don't ever recommend that if you don't need to, especially when you get into the areas where you're crossing over the seam of the hat. When you have a fill stitch on top of a fill stitch, it could really be really tough going through that and can cause some thread breaks. So, do you have that art pulled up?
Yeah, I got it right here.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so yeah, it does look like it's a symmetrical design. Everything should be, perfectly spaced, even. Top and bottom areas with the text, the circle should be the same distance from the outer circle. So yeah, it looks like it is a symmetrical design. So yeah, let's get into the file that I produced that I was working on. So, all right. So I kept a couple of the elements the way it was in the original. I did work on this just for sake of time, a little bit beforehand. But if we run through a quick redraw, let's slow that down a bit. So first off, I did add the global underlay where it's going to work itself center out and bottom to top. And that's good. Again, that's going to stabilize the area since you're working with a curved surface of a hat. It's going to tack down that hat and the material of the hat to the stabilizer to make sure that that you're not going to have any movement on the fabric itself. I usually go a little bit as far as a zigzag up. I do have the fill going in one direction from bottom to top.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
One of his concerns was the registration in the fills. So I think that's kind of how you were addressing that by doing the global underlay across.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I added as far as the fill in the background, I did add the global underlay. It is sewing from bottom to top, so you're not having two different fills meeting in the middle. It's not going going towards the bottom of the hat. The lettering, I do see that at 2 1/4 tall, the lettering ends up being just under 4.5 millimeters tall. So that could definitely be a challenge. Anything sub 5 millimeters can be a challenge as far as the sew quality. And then the fills, like I said, on the propeller. So let me open up the areas that I changed.
Cindy brought up a question. Why are there different textures on the fins? So
anytime you open up a DST file, things like fill stitches, sometimes they get these weird artifacts where it's not going to be a smooth pattern as far as the what do they call it? The offset fraction on how the offset stitches of the fill are laying. Sometimes it gets kind of sporadic and it almost has
sometimes just changing the stitch direction will give it a different texture look, just the way the software is rendering it.
Exactly. And so the propellers themselves, I did change them to a fill. So now you just have satins on top of the fill. The center circle here, instead of having another fill that was used before, I went ahead and in Wilcom, they do have the star tool that it's basically, it sews in a radial fashion. It turns as it's sewing, so it's actually a perfect circle when sewn.
It's like Pike spokes.
Exactly. One other thing too I did, which because everything in the center here, there wasn't anything risk as far as making too small that it wouldn't work. I actually scaled that center down just a bit, and that opened up this area here to make the text a little bit bigger. So I just did some stock text since it was a block font, and we're at 5 millimeters tall now, and we don't have to worry about it running into the borders. So that's one thing I did. These little tricks that you can do. I know most of the time people don't like you changing their design, but they're so subtle that I don't think the end customer would ever notice if we scale that center part down, and it's going to give you room for larger text, which is going to sew better, therefore give you a more quality design. In the long run. So, let's see here.
So Cindy asked a question. I don't know if you plan on actually changing the file at all, but she was asking about the stitch count of the original, and then we can see what the stitch count of your final is once you're done with it. I don't know if you're still tweaking it live or if you're just showing exactly what you all did, but that's how
I have on my screen right now, and it is 18,621 stitches.
And
but that's at 3 inches.
Yep, that's the original file.
Okay, so me taking it down to 2.25, deleting the elements that I redid, I'm down to 10,200. The only part I really haven't redone are these circles within the design. And that's mainly just making sure that the distance, I know we want to jump over to here and check out pulse here shortly. But what I'm going to do is these distances here, I'm going to make those uniform since these satins are going to push out on either direction. I want to just make sure that these are even and uniform. So the distance between each set of circles and the propellers are going to be the same. And that way, you can kind of visually see that they're really close on this side. I know the propeller, they're not perfectly symmetrical. They kind of dip in here. So there might be some areas that are not perfectly equidistant on every side, but we can come close. One trick that I like doing sometimes is when I'm trying to be kind of even, the elements that I'm trying to, I guess, compensate the other elements that are coming up perpendicular to it. And I want to kind of have an edge that's going to mimic the same shape as the elements that I'm close to. Is I'll select those elements. I will select a simple offset and do a distance so it sets it outside the propellers. And that kind of gives me a line. So it's even all the way around, just kind of a guide. So I can adjust those lines so they're even all the way around. So,
and if you actually made that shape you just made, like a solid tatami fill too, you could use the that in the path finding tool, I think it's called, and you could just use the single circle satin, duplicate it out, and then just tell to cut it, and then you'd have all your shapes, and it would all be perfectly contoured around it.
Well, let's do that, Matt.
There you go.
Because science and stuff.
If you want something done quickly, get a lazy person to do it, and they'll find the fastest way to get it done.
So here's what Matt was just saying. I'm going to create a circle.
You already have one too, by the way. You already have two.
Yeah, the inner one there is part of the DST file, so it's not.
Yeah.
It's not all one piece. And I do, if I remember correctly, Joey does not have Wilcom, so I know some of the stuff that I'm going to show as far as tricks on here are not going to necessarily pertain to what you have.
Wait, do we know what software Joey has?
It is, unless you want to comment, Joey.
He doesn't know. Or he froze. Oh no, Justin froze now.
I froze?
I don't know, did you?
Dime. He's got dime.
Dime.
Okay.
There you go. Where was I? Oh, duplicate circles.
That's Control D. No, I didn't see you already did it.
What's that?
Nothing, I'm just heckling. Normally I'm the one who gets heckled.
Yeah, you're good at heckling.
The one thing I don't like about this is when you expand it out, it gets bigger. So you have to go back through and tell it to go back to the original size.
Yeah, so expanding anything when it's a radial or a column C
Increases the width.
Increases the width as you increase the size of it.
Why aren't you just doing a numbered satin column with the same width?
Because I like to make things difficult, Jeff.
Got
Because
it.
this can be done in any software, Jeff. So I'm going to answer this real quick. What stitch are the propellers? I believe the original propellers, because this was asked before the pink was put on, that was a satin, because you put satin over the tatami fill so that you don't have two tatamis on the top because then it gets a little dense and stitch heavy.
Correct.
And we'll get to your other question in a little bit. We'll just
Okay.
get through this part.
So, given that these are all now even, the thickness of these are all there, they're centered to each other. I'm going to go ahead and select them all. And my handy little tool down here, the what tool is that?
I think
The
it's
one shape, maybe.
Shape tool.
I don't know.
in Illustrator. I thought it's Pathfinder or something.
It is Pathfinder and Illustrator, but
We're just gonna go with that. If it's trademarked, it's trademarked. Wilcom can sue Adobe or the other way around. We're not liable for any damage to anything.
I'm so used to just using my toolbars and stuff. I don't know what they're called up in here. Anyways, this toolbar here, shaping tools. There you
Yay,
go.
get it.
So you have different settings here. You can weld them together, the shapes. You can cut and where the intersections are. So that would be only leaving the parts where they intersect. You can exclude, which that's what I'm going to do. And that did not do it well. Maybe it's a different one. Front to back, nope.
I love it because this is the exact same way I do it in like Illustrator when I'm doing this kind of stuff. I hit every single one of them and stop the one that does what I want it to do.
This just goes to show you that I don't take shortcuts like Matt does very often.
It is true.
So now it's delaying because I pressed something that's not
So
its head hurt.
honestly, I think what you need to do is you need to duplicate the pink one and then select one pink and one ring and then do the second one and then it'll delete the pink. So then you duplicate the pink again and go through and it's cumbersome, but
I think you're correct. Yes. That's what it was. I was trying to grab too many different things at once. Like that.
all right, so while he's doing that, I'm going to bring up this question that I was going to say for later. So Joey was asking, should the text be sewn with a smaller needle and 60 weight thread?
At 5 millimeters, I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I mean, my name patches, I'm doing 3 millimeter tall satins, and I'm still doing 40 weight, 75/11, but I'm decreasing the density. I'm doing like a 0.6 fill or 0.55 density or something like that, just so that it doesn't look super bold.
Yeah, so I'm going to delete these original parts in here just because they're grabbing stuff I don't want to grab. I'll just hide them for now. There we go. All right.
Well, one thing I will mention is I don't know where you guys are watching from, if it's from YouTube or Facebook or whatever, but if you're on YouTube, would greatly appreciate the like button. Just doing a mid-video ad for us. Click the like, and if you're not subscribed, that'd be pretty cool if you were. We're just, happy to have people watch us and get some, benefit out of our videos. So, costs you nothing. Costs us nothing. I think. I don't know.
So I can delete these outlines that I did. Okay, so basically, his idea worked. I just had to individually grab the fill that I had created that has an offset, individual lines, cut them. So now I'm going to go ahead and change these colors so we can look at them here.
Yeah, that looks really sharp with all that, but
So now I'm going to go through and make sure that it does so from center out, top to bottom, so this isn't jumping all over the place.
Oh, it 100% is.
As you can see, when I start selecting them, it is skipping. So what it did was, since I created this center circle, it would do this part, jump around, then it'd come around the outer circle instead of doing it in sections. So now I'm just resequencing those. And by that, I select the first one that I want to sew first. And while holding down Control, I will select them in order that I want them to sew. And then the sequence is by selects. Now it's going to go through and sequence them in the way that I want sequenced. So I did that for each of those. So now, if we're looking at the sew sequence, it's going to do the dot in the middle, which I believe was yellow. Let's go ahead and move these next, because those were in the same color change. There's really no need to create a color change there. So it goes from center out at the bottom, center out in the next side, center out there to the top. Again, starting at the bottom, doing that propeller. I think I'll do this one next. So let's resequence that. That's the propellers. And one other thing that I did see in the original as far as the text, as far as the sequence, oh, maybe it was. Never mind. I was just going to suggest doing the text right after the circle elements, just because the only bad thing about hiding stuff is sometimes you forget that elements are there, and you might quickly save something and they're in the file when you send it to somebody.
So I have a trick for that, at least. Instead of just hiding the element, I just select it and hit G, because it disables stitch generation. So it's always there. You can always you can pull it back in. It shows up in the sidebar. It disables it on the view as the rendering, whether it's true view or not. But it's still there. So if I'm doing like because when I do my patches, I do the whole design, then I come back through and I QC it and I remove trims and whatever. If I'm like, I got to redo this whole section, I just select all of it. I hit G. It's still there. I can still see it kind of, and then I go through and then I can compare it, and it just makes it a lot easier, in my opinion.
That's a good idea.
And hiding and unhiding is kind of takes a little bit, because there's not just a key to unhide it, I believe. But
Right.
G works for both, that. So that's what I do.
That's a good idea. I never thought of that. So yeah, the shortcut of creating that kind of that offset outline, creating that fill, chopping up the circles, that's definitely a shortcut. I think I should have expanded it out just a hair more, just because of those ends of those circles are pretty close to the propellers, and I think I'm going to go back and shorten up all those areas for you. Just because when you get the push of those satin stitches, it is going to get pushed closer to the propellers and possibly not have any those clean gaps. So I am definitely going to adjust that as well. One other thing I did notice that in the text, it does show from left to right, even though it's in an arc. Anything symmetrical like this, especially in circles and stuff with hats, I usually try to lay down the most stitch heavy element on the hat, this being the fill with the outline. Keep elements that are the most important as far as the registration, sewing right after each other, so you don't have a lot of movement in the hat coming back to an element. So the fill to the outline and to the text, since the text has to be kind of perfectly centered between those two outlines, I do have them sewing center out Going from the D down to the T of the L to the G. And that way, working on that curved surface, it's a little bit easier to hold registration than sewing from left to right because you do tend to push material. It does look like a structured hat, so that's not an issue as far as the material really, really shifting on you like you do on an unconstructed hat. So, what were we going to say, Matt?
So I was just brainstorming here, but if you wanted to increase the spacing, you might be able to just do your simple offset on the propellers, but just a negative number and just bring it in like 0.1 or 0.2 or something and just remake it into a satin. Because then that would bring it in. I mean, that would be a lot easier than adjusting the your satin circles. Because if you offset those, it would now become a shape and not a satin. Actually, it probably isn't the satin anymore. I don't think they are.
The propellers, they're satins, yeah.
No, not the yellow circle segments, the cords. Those
they're regular satins, but they're not satin C's anymore.
Yeah. So if you did an offset on those, you could also bring that in, but that's also going to bring it in vertically instead of just shortening the length of the cord. But
I do see a question here from Joey. Should there be some push compensation, push and pull compensation? So the areas that I'm concerned about are these areas of the ends of the circles that, again, I'll adjust those a little bit shorter on all sides just so they don't push into the propellers there. The areas here in propellers, because you do kind of have this curved area, I kind of, instead of just having a flat end, if this was, a flat end, kind of like, oops, if there's just a flat end here, you would have to worry about push compensation into the center circle there. But maybe pulling these back just a hair could definitely help to make sure that they're not pushing into the circle. Anywhere you have satins that come perpendicular to each other, when you have one side that's going to be pulling in and the other side that's going to be pushing out. Visually, when you're looking at it on screen, it's not always going to look like the artwork, but like Erica said before, if it looks perfect on screen, that means it's going to sew inaccurately. So regular push and pull as far as your lettering, I tend to, even when I'm using stock keyboard lettering like this basic block here, I tend to go through and make some small adjustments here and there when I know mainly pushing needs to be. Other than that, let me look at my notes here.
And then for people who aren't on YouTube to see the conversation happening on YouTube, so Cindy asked a question about how many were actually being produced, and Joey replied that it's less than 100. So if you're doing, 50 of these and the amount of stitches that Justin has already said that he saved, that's a lot of time, because I think it was already like, was it 800 stitches left? Or
yeah, but that was at 3 inches, and he did say he did scale it down on his machine, so I'm not sure what the stitch count was, but more than likely.
Well, if it was on his machine that he scaled it down, the stitch count would remain the same.
Right. Yeah. So you don't have a stitch processor on your machine. That's why pretty much if you're going to do something on the machine, I don't suggest you do more than 5% if you have to. It's going to be produce better results doing it in your software first and then sending it to your machine. Joey does say it's 14,000 stitches that he has on his machine. So yeah, I'm down to 10 something. So right there, it's 74,000 stitches. So just the change in the stitches. I think the biggest thing was you were trying to take a 3-inch design down to a 2.5-inch design in your machine. So that's an issue in itself. because I believe it's about 17% difference. And so the little, not only, as far as the technical issues, as far as changing the fill direction, the global underlay for the center out, the center out of the text, the little small things like just not digitizing is kind of the interpretation of a design transformed into stitches. Everything doesn't have to be literal from the artwork. I think there's a little bit of leeway, especially when it's not so evident. If I took this design and completely took the circles out, and put the lettering to the side of the propeller straight, and said well, it's close enough, I could see someone saying, well, that's not my design. But taking that center part, scaling it down a little bit, giving more room for the text, so you're not fighting with small text or doing really small text where you have to change out to 60 weight threads, smaller needles. My mind always goes to production, so the most efficient way of writing the design, the best. And if those little nuances can be changed within the digitizing itself, it's going to help you in the long run as far as your production. So making those little changes, like I said, unless someone's bringing out their ruler, measuring their artwork, measuring the actual sewn sample, they're never going to notice the difference that center part's going to be smaller than the artwork. So things like that, you got to weigh your options as far as what's going to make your life easier when you get to the machine.
Yeah, if your customer is doing that too, it's time to pull the plug and fire them, because
right.
Yeah, if they mention, well, I used my micrometer, and no, look, you charged me for 40 weight thread and you're using 60 weight. I'm gonna, I want a refund. Yeah.
Right.
Or my favorite, the ruler across the baseline of the text.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
But real quick, I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. Justin, what number did you land on? So this is the embroiderynerd.io pricing calculator. And one of the great things about this is it can calculate your runtime based off of your file. So I want to say the original was 14,600 stitches. If we put in 14,600 stitches, at 800 stitches per minute, it gives us about an 18-minute runtime. Justin, what did you land at?
We're at 10.5.
So at 10,500 stitches, the estimated runtime is going to be 13 minutes at 800 stitches per minute. So you're gaining about 5 minutes a run.
So that means now I have to charge them less because I made it more optimized.
Exactly.
Right? That's not true. You don't need to charge them less because you're saving time. They don't know that.
Yes, anytime you can save time, stitches, anything that make your costs go down, the better. So that's why I always preach. Good digitized designs make a world of difference.
If we only knew a good digitizer.
If we only knew. And honestly, that's why I got into digitizing. I worked production management at a local shop. And when we lost our very, very, very good digitizer that we had, that he left the industry, and we started bouncing around, and I saw the designs coming out of some people, it was out of necessity that I got into digitizing to make sure that we had efficient production. So it makes a big difference.
Matt's typing things. Clickety, 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 click.
Yeah, I know. That's all you hear in the background. It sounds like a bunch of chickens running over train tracks or something. Rather than a bunch of chickens getting ran over on train tracks, though, I might say.
So yeah, if you haven't checked out the embroiderynerd.io pricing calculator, so if you do have those questions as far as, what design's going to take longer, there's more factors in there that I didn't give Jeff the information as far as trim the designs, color changes in the design.
We didn't have that based off of the first file. At least I didn't have that handy.
Right.
And, this all runs off of, if you guys don't know, we have a little settings button up here. It'll do a flyout, and we have our trim time as set at 2.5 seconds. Color changes 30 seconds. The machine's heads, the number of heads we're running the job on, and then the hourly rate, because we price this based off of the hourly runtime, not necessarily the stitch count, because trims matter and color changes matter quite a bit. And if you guys haven't found your shop hourly rate, it's super easy. We have a business expense calculator actually on the embroiderynerd.io. I want to say it's one of the paid features to get this, but you can enter in your values of what your costs are, and then it'll give you your expenses per machine hour. And then you can take your expenses per machine hour. You can add your hour or your shop rate, or not your shop rate, your labor or your profit margin on top of that. And then that'll help you kind of balance out how much do I need to charge per hour to make sure that my doors stay open. Okay, that was my whole that was my commercial.
And so this website is free. This is a website that we developed ourselves. So if there's any features you need or want or issues, you let us know and we'll fix them or make them happen. So yeah, it's free. The pricing calculator, stabilizer calculator, the thread chart, and all that. Business expenses isn't. That's the paid plan. But because we heard you sigh, there is a 20% off code, live 20 off, and you just use that at checkout, and you get it for either the monthly or the year subscription. And then that just helps us pay for servers, because servers are expensive. This website's pretty expensive to run. It took a lot of time to program. So we greatly appreciate it.
It's a great tool. I can say myself, as far as my daily production stuff, I use this all the time, especially the thread inventory management. Not only what is on there now is awesome, but there is more plans to add a lot more information and education and whatnot through the Embroidery Nerd. So definitely jump in and grab yourself an account. It's really, really, really helpful to your business.
Yeah. If you use the old thread converter, one of the things that sucked about it is you could convert all your threads and be like, hey, Jeff, do you have these colors? Oh, shucks, I can't send you the results other than a screenshot. Well, now there's more. You can actually create a shareable thread converter results. So if Jeff does it correctly, no pressure.
Match rate, and then I can share it.
Yep. And now everyone can click the link that he shares, and it'll take you to his exact match.
Yep. And then I can also match against my thread inventory, which is really cool because that tells me whether or not I have it in stock. So
Which
that is embroiderynerd.io.
So we want to pull up, review this real quick. I'm going to pull up the original picture. So this is what we had sent to us as the design. We already talked about it earlier in the video, but Justin basically went through and redid a bunch of the elements, pulled in a DST file into Wilcom, and I don't know if it was Jeff and I, or Justin and I don't know. I posted the link earlier of a live showing you exactly how to read DSTs in different software. And it kind of can help, because DSTs are not fun, but whatever, I'm rambling. So I'm going to get rid of this.
All right, hang on, Matt. We have a question on embroiderynerd.io, so let's grab that really quick before we head out.
Let me get rid of the banner.
Cindy asks, I have a customer that gave me a PMS color code. I don't color match. So if you go to embroiderynerd.io, and right over here on the left where you can check what your source is, there's code, name, RGB, hex, image, Pantone, and bulk. So you can actually go to Pantone, and then you can type in your Pantone color there, and it'll match it to the thread chart that you specify. So you can match PMS colors off of here really quick, and match it to more than one thread brand at once if you do happen to have more than one brand of thread in your inventory. And I can always hit the button and it will match off of what I have in my inventory. So right here is the glide that I had. Glide is my closest match, light copper. So I'm able to get that and pull that out of my inventory. There we go. Lots of words. And Doug asked,
there's many charts on this. Pretty much every thread brand out there is included, so it's not just Madeira and the big names. I would say pretty much every thread brand is out there that is in the database, so you can match it to any thread that you might use.
Yeah, I think I got like 40,000 threads in there. But Jeff, if you go back to the main, just embroiderynerd.io, there's a table on the homepage that shows you the exact breakdown.
Yep, it's down here. So, matching off of your thread inventory of what you have is one of the paid features. The business expense calculator is another one of the paid features. And inventory reports. And I'm trying to think of what else was there that you have a limit on the number of shopping lists you can create. That's one that I thought of. You're set to one list on the basic, and you get unlimited lists with the subscription. So
I will say being able to match against your own inventory is well worth it, because my color swatch books are in that drawer right there. I don't know when I pulled them out last, because it's just so much easier.
Right.
But
all right. Well, I believe that brings us pretty close to the hour. We didn't have time to jump into Pulse, but that's okay. We can always do that at a different time. I don't know if there's any announcements that you have, Justin, or Matt has.
Nothing in the near future.
All right. Well, I don't have any announcements either. So we'd like to thank you guys for hanging out with us, and we will catch you next time.
Good night, everybody.
yeah.